By the third day, something important had changed. I didn't notice it right away. I don't think any of us did. Changes like that never announce themselves. They don't arrive loudly or suddenly or all at once. They settle in. They make themselves comfortable. By the third day, the mall no longer felt like a place we were hiding inside. It felt like a place we belonged to. That realization didn't scare me at first. It felt reasonable. After all, we were still alive. The doors were still intact. The lights still came on every morning, right on schedule, the way they always had. The world outside had stopped making sense. The mall hadn't. And when something makes sense, you stop questioning it. We started sleeping later, not because we were exhausted exactly, but because nothing was waking us up anymore. No alarms, no schedules that mattered, no reason to be alert before we had to be. Morning, such as it was, became a concept instead of a time. Frank liked structure. He said people needed shape to their days, even now, especially now. So we built one, inventory in the mornings. We counted supplies we already knew were there just to hear the numbers spoken out loud. Canned food, bottled water, first aid kits we hoped we wouldn't need. Afternoons were quiet, not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you become aware of every small sound your body makes. Breathing, swallowing, the soft scrape of a shoe against tile. Nights were when the mall felt the largest. The shadows stretched longer than they should have. Storefront glass reflected us back at strange angles, multiplying our shapes into people that weren't really there. We didn't stand near the entrances anymore. No one said we shouldn't. No rule was written or spoken. We simply stopped. The glass walls were still clear, still unbroken, still offering a perfect view of the parking lot outside, but we treated them like they were solid stone. It was easier not to look. Lena was the first one to mention the water. She didn't panic. She didn't make a big deal out of it. She just said quietly that it tasted wrong. She handed me a bottle and watched my face while I drank. I remember thinking how strange that was, how careful she looked, like she was watching for something specific. The water wasn't foul, it wasn't cloudy. It just tasted flat, empty, like it had been sitting too long without moving. I told her it was probably nothing. That bottled water always tasted a little strange. She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Frank checked the fountains later, same taste, same stillness. That won't last, he said. He didn't say what it was. He didn't need to. Water was one of those things you trusted without thinking about it. You assumed it would always be there. Until you didn't. That was when Frank told us about the lower level, not the parking garage. We already knew about that space. Wide, open, predictable. This was something else. Service corridors, maintenance tunnels, utility rooms, spaces that didn't exist for customers. Spaces that weren't meant to be noticed. The mall's bigger than it looks, Frank said. Evan asked why we hadn't gone down there yet. Frank took his time answering. I remember that. The pause. Because once you do, he said, you can't pretend they aren't there anymore. At the time, I thought he meant physically. I understand now that he meant something else. We didn't vote on it. We didn't debate. Some decisions feel inevitable before anyone says yes. The door was behind a janitor's closet near the food court, plain, unlabeled. So ordinary I had walked past it dozens of times without ever seeing it. Frank unlocked it with a key he'd taken on the first day. The air changed immediately. Not colder, not warmer, just different. The hallway beyond didn't look finished. No tile, no polish. Bare concrete walls, exposed pipes, wires running openly along the ceiling like veins. The lights didn't glow. They buzzed. The ceiling was lower than I expected. It made me want to hunch my shoulders without knowing why. The smell stayed with me. Old, damp, like something sealed away for a very long time. We walked single file, Frank first, then me. Lena behind me, Evan last, gripping the axe like it might float away if he let go. The corridors branched constantly. Some ended in locked doors with faded warning labels. Others opened into storage rooms stacked high with boxes, seasonal decorations, unsold merchandise, things people had planned to use later, evidence of a future that had once been assumed. We found the water access near a maintenance room. Frank said we could make it work. Not clean, not permanent, but enough. That's when Evan stopped. He didn't speak. He just raised his hand and we all froze. At the far end of the corridor was a door, metal, heavy, scratched. It stood slightly open. It hadn't been before, I can't prove that. None of us can, but certainty doesn't always come from evidence. Sometimes it comes from recognition. The gap was narrow, just wide enough to notice. The hallway felt smaller suddenly, closer. Frank took one step forward. Only one. The door moved, not fast, not violently, just enough. Frank stepped back. "No," he said, "we didn't run. Running makes mistakes. We walked back the way we came, slow and deliberate. The lights stayed on. Nothing followed. That bothered me more than if something had." When the janitor's door closed behind us, no one spoke. Lena sat on the floor. Evan stared at the tiles like they might explain something if he looked long enough. Frank finally broke the silence. "We don't go down there alone," he said. No one disagreed. Later that night, I lay awake thinking about that door, about how something had changed without making a sound, about how much of this place we hadn't seen. The mall wasn't built to be understood. It was built to move people through it, to keep them from staying long enough to ask questions. We were staying, and sooner or later the mall was going to notice.